Hello, hazelnuts, and welcome back to the Hello Haze podcast. It has been a minute since I've said that, and it feels really good. It feels really good to be back in my closet, which is apparently the best place in my house for recording audio. So I'm experimenting with this. If you're watching on YouTube, which, by the way, this episode is available to watch, you'll see that it like kind of looks a little bit glamorous from this one angle because there's all these pretty fabrics of my dresses next to me. But if you could see the other side of the closet, you'd be less impressed. There's a gigantic canvas basket of laundry that I've yet to put away because putting away laundry is for some reason absolutely impossible to me. Anyway, I'm really excited to be here with you. And today I'm answering 2 letters from our community that deal with the theme of being excluded. We have one bridesmaid situation where that one's a little bit different than you might think. We have a bridesmaid situation where the person writing in is neither the bride nor the person who's feeling excluded, but is stuck in the middle. And then we also have a letter from someone who feels excluded from their group chat. I'm reading a 3rd letter as well at the end of the episode that I'm not actually going to be answering today, which is different than usual. I'm taking a different creative approach with that letter that I'm really excited about. It's been this idea that's been in my brain for the last few months, and I'm ready to try to tackle it now, which is always a scary part of having an idea. Like when the idea just exists in your brain and it's this perfect, beautiful, genius thing. And then inevitably, when you try to take it from your brain and make it into something, as Ann Patchett says about her novels, when she first tries to write them, you end up killing the thing inevitably. So I have to start somewhere, and I will never get to I will never make the idea in the way that it exists in my brain unless I get started. That's a long way of saying the 3rd letter, not going to answer it here today on the pod. I will be answering it in a different format on YouTube and in a companion piece on my Substack. It's all part of my larger vision of how all of these different creative platforms can speak to each other in the Hello Haze universe rather than, putting the same thing everywhere, because I'm bored by that. And if I'm bored by that when I consume other people's stuff, I imagine you'd be bored by it too. Is that true? I don't think you'd be bored by it necessarily if it were someone else, but I think you would notice if I were bored by it, So that's why I'm doing things my way. So the 2 letters, to bring it back on track, the 2 letters that I'm answering today on the Hello Haze podcast are actually a continuation of the conversation I had last week on the Bright Side podcast, which is a Hello Sunshine podcast, Hello Sunshine and iHeartMedia. And you guys, that was I had such a fantastic experience on that show. It's hosted by Danielle Robay and Simone Boyce, who I wasn't familiar with before this, but I adore them and respect them. They're such wonderful hosts. They do a daily podcast, which is insane. I cannot believe that they're doing interviews every day over there. And the producer on the show, Jessica, who reached out to me originally about coming on, she was so great to work with. Especially considering I have been a little bit skeptical about doing these interviews because I shouldn't say these interviews. I've been skeptical about doing interviews because they make me extremely nervous beforehand. And when the Bright Side episode came out last week, I published a little essay on my Substack that explains why I get so nervous and this epiphany I had before I went on the episode. So I'm not going to belabor the point here. Go read the Substack if you're curious to learn more of what I'm talking about. But before I did this interview, I was reflecting on why it is that I feel so nervous and sick to my stomach before some of these interviews. And I kind of realized that it's because whether it's been for a job or an opportunity or just any time I have to speak to someone who I think is in a position of power over me, I kind of become this version of myself that's just trying to please or impress the other person. And I think some of that is some of that's a requirement of being a human and working in a capitalist system maybe, or just being a person who wants to have good relationships with others and show their value and their talent and blah, blah, blah. But I have a hard time accepting that the debilitating thing I feel before I get on an interview that'll be used for content, or before I meet with some, I don't know, fancy schmancy person who could help me in my career. I really reject the idea that I have to feel sick to my stomach in order to perform and like wow them on that call. And it's hard for me because my nerves before interviews have never botched the interview for me. Maybe not never, maybe potentially jobs I haven't gotten in the past. Maybe it was because I was so nervous, or maybe I didn't perform to my potential because of nerves. But I don't want to accept that I have to live the rest of my life feeling sick to my stomach before any big opportunity to then crush the opportunity. I refuse to believe that that is my secret sauce, that the nerves and the sickness are my secret sauce to performing. No, I'm not going to live like that. So about half an hour before I went on this show, this episode of The Bright Side, I said to myself, Alexandra, usually when I'm talking to myself, I refer to myself as Alexandra. I don't refer to myself as Hayes. Alexandra, all you can do is be yourself. Stop fucking rehearsing all your answers to questions that you don't even know if they're going to ask you. Stop trying to figure out, well, what type of Hayes do they want on the show? What type of expert do they want on the show? Can you make yourself be this type of expert? Just be yourself. Trust that yourself is going to at least get you through the interview. I'm not sure if yourself is going to wow them. I'm not sure if yourself is going to lead to new opportunities. But all you can be in this life is yourself. So you know what? Fuck it. Be yourself. Any question that comes up that you're not sure how to answer, or you need a minute to think through, just be yourself. That's all you can do. And that clarity, it calmed me before the interview. And I have to say, I think it helped contribute to the conversation being an interview where I really sound like myself. I also think it was both Danielle and Simone and Jessica in her prep that allowed me to do that. As soon as I signed on to the Zoom, we were going to record in person, but it ended up being a Zoom. As soon as I signed on, Simone hadn't logged on yet, and I said hello to Danielle. She commented on my energy, that I had like a bright side energy. And maybe that was me. It's hard to sort of distinguish like the authentic self from the self that's here to perform, which I was naturally am like trying to find the balance between those two when I'm in any of these situations with an external, talking to people who aren't you. When I talk to you here on the podcast, or I talk to you in my writing or in a video, sometimes it feels like a performance, but this doesn't feel so much like a performance. I lost my train of thought, but I think what I was trying to say is that Danielle made me feel really comfortable. And she said, your energy, she was complimenting my energy. She was mirroring it, reacting positively to it in a way that assured me right away, okay, you can be yourself. This is going to be okay. This is going to be okay. If you haven't listened to that episode, I think you should. I think it was a great episode. They asked me really smart and thoughtful questions about my journey to Hello Hayes. And also, you hear us discuss these two advice letters that I'm going to read in a minute. And they're sort of a bridge. Is a bridge the right word? Condensed? They're shorter letters. They're shorter versions of these letters. Going on other people's shows. They're like, do people really want to listen to the long letter? And I think the answer is yes, at least on this show. But we did a shorter version, and we talked about them a little bit shorter, but it was really cool to hear some of their perspectives and their reactions to the advice. And I just think that if you listen to that and then listen to this one, or if you listen to this and then go listen to that, you'll be able to see you might be able to put some pieces together in my thought process that could yield new meaning for you. But I also want to tell you about the crazy fucking thing that happened after that interview. So just to give you a timeline of this, I did the interview on a Tuesday, okay? And had the panicked in the morning of the interview on Tuesday. And then by the end of the interview, came back downstairs and told Brian how great it was, how this new mindset's going to help me. Amazing. Okay. The week goes on. Interview's not live. The next week on Thursday, the interview goes live. And to help promote the episode, I write the Substack piece. I wrote that the morning of. I'm trying to experiment a little bit with giving myself a tighter timeline to write. I made my coffee. I wrote from 7:30 to maybe 8:45. And then I sent it off. I felt really good. I felt like, okay, Alexandra, you overcame this fear. You learned new insight about yourself and how you can deal with these situations moving forward. It felt like if I can approach all of my opportunities this way, with patience for myself and curiosity and forgiveness for myself, if I can figure out what I learned from each, if I can take what I learned and make it into a story that I can share with you that maybe will make you feel seen or inspired, or like you can do scary things in your life, I felt like, okay, you can do this. If you focus on that, which is why you want to do any of this in the first place, if you focus on that, you're going to be okay. You can keep doing this thing that you love. So I felt good. Thursday night, I felt fucking awesome, actually. Thursday was an amazing day. And I wake up on Friday morning. Thursday night, actually, I took a gummy on Thursday night that was supposed to be a small amount of weed. And for some reason, when I took the gummy out, I usually eat a quarter of it. And I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take half a bite. I'm gonna take half of the gummy. Not a good idea. Took half the gummy, came upstairs to watch Sex and the City in bed, was supposed to be having like a chill, relaxing night. 20 minutes later, I'm downstairs checking my pulse with Brian. It still was a great night, but I went to bed and I was going to let myself sleep in the next day on Friday because I was up later than normal, whatever. Friday morning, I wake up and I typically don't check my phone first thing in the morning. But for some reason, I check my phone on Friday morning and I see a text from my friends Hillary and Abby, who are also my literary agents. And I see a screenshot of Hello Sunshine's Instagram post, but I'm like kind of half asleep. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I already saw that they Instagrammed the conversation yesterday. It was really exciting. Like, yes, cool. But then I have this thought, what if, could it be? And I looked closer and yes, it could. It was Reese motherfucking Witherspoon, sharing the podcast interview that I did on The Bright Side. And for those who don't know, Reese Witherspoon founded Hello Sunshine. Hello Sunshine is her company. She sold it in 2021 for a reported $900 million casual. So it's not completely random. It's not like Reese Witherspoon just happens to be looking for a podcast to listen to and listen to that one. She was the first guest on the Bright Side podcast, and theoretically is up to, pays attention to how the show is doing. But Reese Witherspoon listened to my episode, and I texted them back right away. I'm like, do you think this means she listens to it? And we think probably yes. Which, the hosts and producer later confirmed that, yes, it does actually mean that she listens to it. And it felt really, really good. And I want to just take a minute to reflect on why that felt really good. It feels good for two reasons. It felt good not just because of the bravery of the interview and like the journey that I went on from scared because I feel like I have to perform and be another version of myself to no, I can just be myself and myself will be good enough. But even more than that, if I pull back even further, if any of you follow me on TikTok, you may have noticed that I have not posted a TikTok video in, what day is it? May 27th? May 5th was the last time I posted a TikTok video. And I guess similarly, a short video on any other platform. That's 3 weeks. That's fucking crazy. I haven't gone that long without posting a video since I started posting videos in December of 2022. But I did that, not really intentionally at first. It wasn't intentional at first. Like I just didn't make a video for a couple of days and then I was focusing on something else, so I didn't make one. And then slowly it was like, oh, all of a sudden it's been 3 weeks. But those 3 weeks of not making videos, everyone tells you that you can't stop. You can't stop. If you stop, everything is going to be taken away from you. All these bad things are going to happen. And that mindset was making me function from a place of fear. And I'm really, really proud of myself that I stepped off of the hamster wheel I was on so that I could come back to myself. That makes me feel really, really proud. So this interview came, by the time the interview happened, maybe I hadn't made a video in a week and a half. And now at the time this podcast comes up, it'll be 3 weeks. That's not going to be forever. I am coming back to making short videos. Because I had taken that time, I was able to have that eureka moment before the interview that reminded me it's okay to be myself. I don't think I would have had that courage or even the mental space to be gentle with myself in that way had I not taken a break. Like, I went into that interview on the bright side that Reese Witherspoon then later went on to share. I went into that interview as myself, which I only had the confidence and insight to do because of the time I had taken to reflect and come back into my own skin. And to receive that acknowledgement from a person who I admire like so deeply, who supports writers and stories from people who haven't always had a platform to share them, I admire Reese Witherspoon. I admire who she is, what she stands for, and to receive the acknowledgement from someone like her after all of that has been happening in the background of my personal life just felt like a sign. And what's the takeaway here for all of us? Because there is a takeaway, and it's not, we will not all receive validation from Reese Witherspoon. And I may never receive validation from Reese Witherspoon ever again or anything like that, right? This could just be a random thing. So the lesson is not do hard things and a celebrity will acknowledge you. But I do think this is evidence that when you do the hard thing for yourself, the thing that you don't think is possible, you don't think you're allowed to do, when you are honest with yourself and say, you know what, I actually have to do this. There is no way forward for me in this life, in this work, unless I make this change. And you know what? If I lose other things as a result, at least I get myself back. I think that this is evidence that if you do that, you will be rewarded in some way. The reward might not come right away, but you will be rewarded. So if you haven't listened to the conversation yet on the bright side, go listen to it. And with that, let's continue the conversation here. I am going to read letter 1. Hello, Hayes. I have a wedding conundrum that I think only your 6 besties theory can solve. I'm going to be a bridesmaid in my friend's wedding, and I'm really excited about it. She's my first close friend to get married, and this will be the first wedding party that I'm a part of. What I'm less excited about is navigating the feelings of our other friend, let's call her Julia. The 3 of us met freshman year of college and have been friends ever since. The bride, let's call her Olivia, and I quickly became North Star besties, where Julia has remained a seasonal or maybe OG bestie if we count college as an origin story. Side note, we definitely can count college as an origin story. Back to the letter. In college, we were all part of the same friend group and even lived together for a year, but it's always been Olivia I've turned to for the big stuff. We never had a big fight or falling out with Julia. No one ever did anything wrong. This has always been a case of different personalities connecting in different ways, which, unfortunately, Julia has struggled with from the beginning. We graduated several years ago and are all still in contact. While the 3 of us occasionally text in our group chat and send each other Christmas and holiday cards, Olivia and I have flown across the country to visit each other several times and FaceTime regularly. Olivia and I have spent a lot of energy over the last 8 years trying to be courteous and discreet about our friendship without being secretive, and I'm starting to wonder if this has done us all a disservice. So here's where I need a little Hayes magic. When Julia texted me about feeling excluded from the wedding party, I wasn't surprised. She said that she felt she had missed something because she still thinks of us as a trio, but also that this reaffirmed her feeling that Olivia and I are closer with each other than we are with her. I completely understand feeling excluded and hurt when friendships evolve in this way. It's something I've also really struggled with and continue to work on. However, her feeling confused or surprised after all this time is concerning and unrealistic. Olivia and I have been as open about our friendship as possible without being unkind, and I don't think this is the case of her not knowing, but rather of not accepting. I already answered Julia about the bridesmaid issue, and I think I did a pretty good job of keeping it positive and kind without making excuses or trying to hide anything. However, I'm anticipating these feelings and comments continuing to come up throughout the wedding weekend. I feel genuinely sad for Julia and don't want to end this friendship, but my patience is starting to feel like coddling. How do I gently explain to her that friendships change and it's okay to have different types of besties? Do I finally need to give her an honest reality check, or do I just support her through her feelings? Yours, Bemused Bridesmaid. Woo! I'll start by saying that there are a few tentpole moments in young adult life, maybe in life overall, where like friendship stuff gets a little bit testy. And one of them is definitely when the first friends start getting married and the issue of bridesmaids or wedding parties comes up. And I think it's nearly impossible to have a wedding and choose to have bridesmaids or groomsmen or a wedding party without hurting somebody's feelings. Or maybe I should say without someone's feelings getting hurt. Why do I make that distinction? Hurting someone's feelings sort of implies blame when I think you can make choices about your wedding party and that you are not to blame. We are not responsible for someone else's feelings, so distinction there. Point being, it's kind of unavoidable. Like you can't, if you're gonna have a wedding party and you have lots and lots of friends, someone's probably going to feel slighted, even if it's privately and they never say anything. So striving for protecting everyone's feelings is probably not a realistic way to go into your wedding if you are someone who wants to have a wedding party. But what's interesting about this letter is that you, bemused bridesmaid, are not the bride, nor are you the person who's been excluded, which makes me interested about you as a person writing me this letter. We find ourselves in the middle of these situations for many reasons. I think you could either be a problem fixer or a problem stirrer, meaning you're there to stir the pot, or you like being in the drama. This is something I think that maybe Danielle or Simone had pointed out in our original conversation. I don't think that's you. I don't think you, bemused bridesmaid, are the problem stirrer. I think you're more of the problem fixer. That's what my instinct says. My instincts say that you're someone who wants everyone to be happy. And you quite literally, like Julia has put you in the middle of this, so maybe this is a one-off. And you're only writing to me about this because you're forced to deal with it because you are quite literally being put in the middle. But that's the angle that I'm going to continue this letter with. I don't believe you're a problem stirrer, so I'm not going to harp on that. Though if you recognize yourself as a problem stirrer, that'll be an interesting thing for you to recognize as soon as I say it. But leaning into the idea that you are a problem fixer, you feel responsible for everybody. Let me just tell you that you are not responsible for this. You're not responsible for Olivia's choice. You're not responsible for Julia's reaction. All you're responsible for is yourself, how you treat others generally, and during this wedding weekend. But I want to talk more about your friendship with Julia. Let's talk about your friendship with Julia. So you describe this friendship fallout as non-specific, meaning nothing specifically led to it. It's just like after college, you kind of just drifted, which is normal and happens to a lot of relationships. But then you also mentioned that Julia has always had a hard time with different personalities, right? Isn't that what you said? Julia, this has always been a case of different personalities connecting in different ways, which unfortunately Julia has struggled with from the beginning. So you saying that makes me think that like there's something about Julia that doesn't quite click with you. It might not matter, that detail, but it could be useful for you to realize, like, have you distanced yourself from Julia for this reason? Because she's difficult? She's not easy to be friends with? If so, like, not really a big deal, but it does make this story more than just no one did anything wrong. Things change over time. It makes it more deliberate. A friendship with Julia is not easy because she makes things difficult. She yada, yada, yada. I want you to just think about that for a second as you reflect on why your relationship with Julia has changed. I also want to talk about what you said about being discreet with your friendships. You said, Olivia and I have spent a lot of energy over the last 8 years trying to be courteous and discreet, and I'm starting to wonder if this has done us all a disservice. I was thinking more about this, and I've referenced it in videos in the past kind of loosely. I think that discretion in friendship groups, discretion in general, can be a really helpful tool. We're so used to putting everything on social media now, all of us, that like we can sort of feel pissed off or deprived if someone even suggests, like, maybe don't put that on social media because you might leave someone out. But I think we should do that more. I think people should think about that more often, actually. Like, do I need to put this on social media? Will it hurt someone's feelings? I think that's a good thing to think about. There is a fine line, though. There's a fine line between I'm not publicizing this because it's private and I don't need to share everything about me, and it could create drama that isn't necessary. And I'm not going to publicize this on social media because I know it's wrong. So, some more examples. Here's an example of when I think discretion could be appropriate. So example 1, let's say that you're the bride, just stay on theme for bride, and you're in a larger friend group. You've got like 10 bridesmaids, but there's one of the bridesmaids that you feel closer to. Or just like she's the bridesmaid that you want to come with you when you go try on wedding dresses for the first time. So you ask that one friend to join you. I think it's fair to not post pictures from that one time with your friend there with you because it might hurt some of your other best friends' feelings. That's a time when I think discretion is appropriate. Do you need to do that? No. But I think discretion in that case is not lying. It's not being sneaky. It's being considerate. Here's an example, though, of when I think discretion, I'm using quotes, discretion could be sketchy. let's say you and your friends are all talking about going to a concert. All of you in like the group chat or whatever. You're all talking about going to a concert, and then you decide to go, but you don't invite one of the girls who had been present, or one of the people, I don't mean to use gender, one of the people who had been talking about going to the concert. You don't invite that person, and you all agree to not post anything from the concert because you don't want that person to know you excluded them. That's just not nice. Like, you should have just invited the person to the concert. I think the takeaway there is that discretion is not useful when it's used to create a lie. Discretion is not a useful tool if it's being used to uphold the fake thing that the three of you are all still best friends. Has your discretion been doing that? Has the discretion you've used over 8 years, which 8 years, by the way, is a fucking long time. I'm assuming you're referring to the 4 years of college, 4 years after, which makes you around like 26, 27. That's a long time. Has the discretion you've used over then been upholding the lie that the three of you are a trio or not? So what to do about Julia? I think that if listening to this, you are sort of realizing that your discretion has been used to create a lie or to protect you from leaving someone else out, I think you could say, I'm sorry. Olivia and I have gotten a lot closer over the last several years, and I thought it was better to keep it private because I didn't want you or any of our other friends to feel hurt. But I see in retrospect that did more damage. I care about you a lot, and I'm really sorry. I think you could say something along those lines. But if not, if you're like, no, Hayes, my discretion has been useful, my discretion has been considerate, and Julia is out of her mind for thinking that this is weird or for continuing to complain about it, the first thing I would do is just give Julia some grace, okay? Give Julia some grace. She might have just been venting to you, you know? She might have just needed one time to vent to you, which is what close friends allow each other to do sometimes, especially if you're in a friend group. I think it is normal and natural to vent to each other from time to time if something happens. There's a fine line between, venting and sharing and gossiping or being mean. But given what you've shared with me, I think we could give Julia a pass. If she just shared it with you that once, she clearly feels close to you. And by sharing it with you, you might have actually been helpful in like de-escalating a situation. She might have just needed to get it off her chest once. And now that she did, everything's kosher. But I'm curious, I mentioned like this is something that you do for people who you feel close to. When Julia shared this with you, did that feel like overstepping? I'm kind of curious about that. Like, were you like, wow, this is weird that you're saying this to me because you and I are not that close? I'm curious for you to think about that. If not, I would just give Julia some grace. You're also doing a little bit of the thing that we can all do, which is like you're anticipating all of the ways that somebody could fuck up or that a situation could go wrong when that hasn't actually happened yet. So for your own like nerves and your own wanting to be the fixer of this situation, like don't anticipate her bringing it up at the wedding if she hasn't yet. That hasn't happened yet. So don't spend too much time worrying about something that might not actually happen. But I do know that you want to be prepared, and I agree it's useful to be prepared. And I agree that the wedding weekend is absolutely not a time to discuss like the status of your relationship. So if she brings it up, I would just say, I hear you, but I don't think that this is the right time to talk about this. Let's have this conversation after the weekend. And to give you more than just, well, don't think about something that hasn't happened yet, which I know can be kind of annoying, though good and true advice. Instead of putting your energy towards anticipating Julia doing something and trying to come up with solutions for something that hasn't happened yet, take that like healer energy and channel it into being a like preemptive supportive friend for Julia. So knowing that she's insecure about this friendship, how can you remind her through your actions that you care about her and are her friend, that you have your own individual relationship? Does that look like asking her what she's wearing to the wedding? Being in a group chat with Olivia, talking about how excited you all are, how you can't wait to all dance together. How can you make her feel included? That can happen in parallel to the fact that you and Olivia are closer friends, right? Like two things can be true at once. Maybe there's a particular like wedding song that people play at weddings that also reminds you of college, that like sparks joy or whatever, and you're excited to dance all together. Like for us, it would be like Flow Rida, welcome to my house, play that music too loud. Like if that song came on, I know that me and my college girlfriends, oh my God, this makes me sound so old. Cut that. Point is, how can you be a supportive friend to Julia beforehand that doesn't involve talking about what she said? You might never need to talk about that again, but you can show her that you care. And if it continues to come up after the wedding, I'm going to read you something I wrote. I think you could say something like, I'm sorry that this has felt so hard. I can relate to the feeling in some of my other relationships that have changed over the years. I think what I've learned in those relationships is that not all friendships are going to look exactly the same or be as close as others. And I think that different friendships will change during different seasons of life. And that's what's happened with ours. You know, Olivia and I have a separate relationship, just as you and I have a separate relationship. It makes me sad that this is a source of pain for you, because I never want to hurt you. And I want you to know that I love you. And I hear that it's hard. I think you could say something like that acknowledges that you as a human have also experienced something similar. You're being honest about the fact that you and Olivia have another type of friendship. And you're being honest with the fact that you care about Julia, if you do care about Julia and want to remain friends, which I think you do. Ultimately, that's all that can be said. That will probably still hurt Julia's feelings, but that's for Julia to process and decide if she wants to be your friend or not. And I hope that Julia does want to still be your friend and does want to still be Olivia's friend if you are genuine, supportive, good friends in your own way. Right? And if she continues to badger you about this, then ultimately this will be the kind of friendship that fades away. But that piece is for Julia to decide. And now I'm reading letter 2. Hello, Hayes. Can you apply the 6 besties theory to a group as a whole? I have a group of girlfriends, 5 of us total, and we've been close for 7 years after meeting at university. We keep in touch mainly in a group chat, as a few people have moved away. Over the past year, I've noticed that when I send something in the chat about my life, be it sharing some good news like winning an award or looking for emotional support when something bad happens, nobody replies. Usually it'll get ignored until the next day when somebody else wants to message, and they'll just send a half-hearted reply to whatever I said and then change the subject. After the first couple of times this happened, I stopped sharing updates. The thing is, though, when other members of the group send in their life updates or ask for advice, everybody replies. I always make sure to reply quickly to everybody else and be supportive and interested, yet when I message, tumbleweeds. For example, one of the other girls got a promotion, and when she told the group, everyone replied congratulating her enthusiastically and asking questions. But when I got a new job, only one person responded to say congrats and then immediately changed the subject. It's weird because we're in our late 20s and there haven't been any arguments, and this has been my main friend group for many years. Yesterday something funny happened and I wanted to tell the group about it so we could all laugh together. Needless to say, everybody read my message and nobody replied. I feel like a massive idiot and so embarrassed, but maybe I just need to apply the 6 besties theory to this situation and accept that the group is no longer what it once was. On the other hand, it leaves me a bit confused about where I stand. I feel anxious every time I send anything to the group chat now because I know it will probably get ignored. But also, if I simply never send any messages into the chat, what's the point of even being there? It's really knocked my confidence because I've started to think that I must be boring or annoying, or maybe I'm just a bad person. I feel heartbroken, as for years I thought these girls would one day be my bridesmaids, and now I'm not sure if they'd even reply if I told them I was engaged. What would you do, Hayes? How would you move forward from this? Yours, Ousted. I didn't realize this until this moment, but like the resonance of that bridesmaid line at the end, this is why people's feelings get hurt when they're not selected to be bridesmaids. Like we dream up bridesmaids as like the number one way to show a friend that you care about them. They're going to be my bridesmaid one day, when really weddings are not about friendship. I mean, maybe they are. Weddings should not be about friendship. There are other meaning. If weddings become about friendship, God, this is a whole other fucking rant that I could go on, and I'm going to stop myself. But what I'm trying to say is that weddings are already so problematic in so many ways. Let's not loop friendships into there. There's already enough problems with expectations around weddings and romance and what marriage is and family shit. Let's leave friendships as a sacred thing that are not damaged by weddings. Rant over. Time to get into this question. So, sweet Ousted. Yes, to answer your initial question, you can absolutely apply the 6 besties framework to a group as a whole. But remember that 6 besties theory is still intended to be used for people who are like good friends, who make you feel good about yourself, who are in one way or another a bestie. And that's what we're here to discuss in your letter. Like, are these people OG besties? Or are they not really friends at all? I'm going to walk you through the possibility that you could be overthinking this. You could be overanalyzing texts and nothing's really wrong other than how you feel, which of course needs to, we want you to feel differently. So that's one possibility. And I'm also going to walk you through the possibility that these are not really in fact your friends. And I'm going to have reflection questions for both, so stick around for those. But first, I just want to extend a hand to you because I know how painful it can be to feel like you are being excluded, ousted, ignored, disliked from your friend group, your main friend group. You refer to this group as your main friend group, and I'm curious to what makes you think that they're your main friend group? Do you hang out with them all the time? Are these the only people in your life that you feel as friends? Are you referring to them as that because you've known them the longest? Feeling anxious every time you send something to a group is definitely a sign that it's not a great fit for you in some way. It's definitely a sign that something's not working, definitely a sign that this group chat is not a place for you to continue looking. It's not a good place for you to continue seeking support or looking for encouragement. And I think that you were on the right track at first when you considered sharing fewer personal stuff there. We're going to come back to that. I do want to talk about the group chat, like as a concept, because that's where the problem really takes place in this story, the setting, if you will. The scene of this advice letter takes place inside our phones. Now, I have very mixed feelings about the group chat. As a person who is not ebullient, super active, super thrilled, a super active participant in any group chat, frankly, or even one-on-one texts. It's not the place where I shine as a friend, partner, daughter, sister, whatever. And I think that there are a lot of people like me. But generally, no matter who you are, I don't think it's useful to analyze texts to determine a person's or a group's true feelings about us. I don't think it's useful to use a group chat to gauge our social standing in a group. There's just too many factors. There's too many external factors and pieces of that could mess with the data for you to get a truly reliable answer. I'm not a science person. I feel like there's a lot of good science analogies that I could be using here. What's the independent variable and the dependent variables? I feel like any experiment would be don't look to group chat texts to see how people feel about you. But again, science, not my forte, so I should abstain from using those metaphors. But if you are gonna use text to try to decipher how someone feels about you, it's really important that you couple it with real life verbal or physical experiences, and that you're not just using texts. So that's one thing. I don't think it's useful to overanalyze those. Two, every group chat has different codes of conduct, different use cases. If everybody in your group chat sends short messages and then you're out there sending novels, people might be reacting to the length of or not reacting to the length of your message. That isn't, I don't say that to tell people to conform to the group that you're in. Certainly not. But maybe something to think about. Are you interacting the length, tone of your messages? Is it the right place for this specific group chat? Is it kind of the agreed upon, are you participating in the agreed upon norms of the group? Doesn't mean your messages are bad or that you should change, but might help you see, maybe this type of text message, this type of 7-paragraph essay about advice I need isn't right for the group chat. There are a few different explanations for what's happening here with your friends in this group chat, but there's one thing that we know for sure to be true, which is that the group chat is not a place where you feel good. And despite whatever the intentions are from them or what the truth is from these friends, the group chat has proven to not be a place where you feel supported or encouraged. It doesn't make you feel celebrated or cared for in the way that you are looking to be celebrated and cared for in your friendships. And yet you continue to share intimate stuff in it, hoping for things to be different. I get why you do that. We all do that. But now is the time to stop. Now is the time to say something has to change. This isn't working. It's making me feel bad about myself. It's making me question if I'm a bad person or a good person. My love, you know if you're a good person or a bad person. And that, I don't think those two like binaries exist. We are not good or bad people. All good people can do bad things sometimes. You know you're a good person, right? You know you're a good person. I think you know you're a good person. Do you know you're a good person? I don't know who's on the other end of this line, but I think that you're a good person if you're here. You're a good person if you're here. We're just going to say that. I think that this is the most important recognition for all of us, though. Like the moment when we realize that we're continuing to do something that isn't good for us, it's definitely a realization that I've had in my own life over the last few months. And it can take time to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. And it might be scary because it might mean that I don't actually know who to text that funny thing to. But I'm not going to text that funny thing to the person who's not going to laugh with me. It's hard. It takes time to make that jump. Sometimes we think we'll feel better sometimes we think sharing it with anyone will feel better than sharing it with no one. But the truth is that sharing it with no one feels better than sharing it with someone who's not there to receive you. So that's the one fact that we know to be true. But again, there are lots of possibilities. So the first possibility I want to entertain is that you could be overthinking this, right? You've only presented one story to me, and we all know that we are all biased storytellers. Like, even with the evidence that you've shared in this story, which, yes, is biased because you are writing it to me, it is kind of damning, right? If it's happening as you're saying, it doesn't look great. But I know that once we start telling ourselves a story, we start to have bias, and we start to pick up on things that support the story we're telling. So if you've been telling yourself, they don't like me as much as they like everybody else, you're going to notice, overanalyze, blow up the way that they talk to each other versus the way they talk to you. I say this because I also tend to overthink texting things or like digital communication, especially only when I feel insecure about the relationship, or not even insecure, but like I don't know the person well enough yet. I'm not confident yet in the relationship because it's a new relationship. I'll sometimes overthink and overanalyze like what I say. Like if I ask a new friend for a favor, or if I say anything that's like a little outside of my comfort zone, that's like a little too authentic, a little too me, and they don't respond, my brain will automatically jump to thinking that like I've overstepped, that they don't like me, that they think I'm annoying, yada, yada, yada. Like my brain goes there too. And in those moments, I try to come back to my intentions. Like, do I know that I was just being myself? Yep. Do I trust myself? Yes. Do I trust that even when my self-doubt is going fucking crazy, do I trust that like my true self is confident? Yeah, I do. I trust my true self. And that will kind of calm me down. Then I also think of times when I haven't responded to somebody. So if someone isn't responding to my text and I start to spiral, I'm like, okay, well, when was the last time I haven't responded to someone? Okay, probably like yesterday. There's a million texts that I haven't responded. Did I not respond to those people because I don't like them? Because I think they're annoying? No. I usually haven't responded because I've become overwhelmed that I haven't responded, or I'm distracted. It, again, not a good thing. I should respond to people's texts. But it has nothing to do with them, everything to do with me, or with nothing. It isn't personal. So I want to suggest, or not even suggest, I want to throw out there that maybe some of this isn't personal. And maybe hearing that, you can take another look at the story you wrote me and see if you had embellished anything, or if anything feels slightly untrue with that reminder. And then if you are stuck in an overthinking spiral, you can also ask the person that you're overthinking about. So I wouldn't ask the group chat. I would not send a message to the group chat. One, because I think that that puts you in a position to be ganged up on. And also, like, the group chat is not a place where you feel good or people answer you. So I wouldn't do it there. But I would ask maybe your closest friend in the group chat. You could say privately, did I do something to upset the group? I might be in my head about this, but it seems like everybody ignores me when I respond. What do you think? In your own way, to the person who's your friend. And now, my love, if you're thinking, well, Hayes, there's not a single person in that group that I have a one-on-one relationship with, well, that could also be a sign that this isn't actually your main group of friends. In a main group of friends, there should be at least one person who you feel close to, comfortable with, that you could have a private conversation with. How could it be your main group of friends if there's no one you'd you feel comfortable talking to one-on-one. If you're starting to think, well, are these people even my friends? If you, Ousted, or anybody listening is reflecting on a group of their own friends, here are some reflection questions that I'd ask to get to the bottom of that. So first, let's talk about individuals. I want you to think of one person in the group. One person. What's one thing that I like about this person as it relates to our relationship? So we're not going to say, oh, I like that that person is like really funny. No, we want to be selfish here. I like that this person laughs at my jokes, or I like that this person like playfully makes fun of me in a way that makes me feel seen. What's something you like about them as it relates to your specific friendship? Can you think of anything? Next, I want you to think of the last time I spent time with this person. And that could be in person, on the phone, on video chat, but time with them. How did you feel when you left that? How did you feel during? I think how you felt when you left can be more indicative, because sometimes our feelings in the moment are confusing. Can you remember? Now repeat that for somebody else in the group. Where you land there could help you realize if these people are your friends or not. If you can't think of a single thing that you like about them as it relates to your friendship, maybe not a great friend for you. If you didn't feel good after spending time with them, maybe not a great friend for you. And then for the group as a whole, try thinking, when was the last time I spent time with this whole group? Do I remember how I felt after? Same thing. If not good, this group maybe is not the right group of friends for you. And look, sometimes we do have to be around people who make us feel, like sometimes you do have to suck it up and be around people who make you feel insecure. Like I'm thinking about work. Work is probably the number one place where sometimes we have to deal with difficult personalities. But your friendships, like your group of friends, does not need to be one of them. Doesn't need to be one of them. The final thing I'll say here about how this is impacting your self-esteem, let's just play out the worst case scenario here. So let's say you're right. Your group of friends doesn't like you because they think you're boring and annoying. They might think that. They might. But that does not mean that you are boring or annoying. What people think of us has nothing to do with who we actually are. There are definitely people who think I'm boring and annoying and probably a whole other long list of adjectives that would hurt my feelings. But I know who I am. I don't think I'm those things. The people who love me and choose to spend time with me don't think those things. Or maybe they sometimes do. The people who like my company like me regardless of the times when I'm boring or annoying or whatever. And the people who like your company will like you regardless of those times too. I'm going to read the final letter now. And as a reminder, I'm not going to answer this letter in this podcast episode. I'm going to use this letter for a new creative video format that I'm experimenting with. And I'm really excited about it. But I do for now, I'm going to read the letter, and I'd love to hear if you have any similar memories, if this letter brought up anything for you in your personal life and how you got through it. Please go comment those on the YouTube video of this podcast episode. I'm going to read those and incorporate them into the piece that I'm working on. Shut up, Hayes. Let's get reading. Letter 3. Hello, Hayes. I have a group of friends that I've been tight with since grade school. We're in our late 20s now and all live in different places. We meet up on rare occasions and make a point to check in with each other every now and then. On some level, of course I've been aware that we've drifted and made other friends, but they've still always been like family to me. I would drop anything to help any one of them without a second thought. Here's the thing. I recently found out on social media that several of the group, only a few of us left out, went on a trip together. A few of us occasionally would hang out randomly if we were in the same city, or maybe one-on-one, but something like this has never happened before. I doubt I would have ever even been able to go on something like this, but realizing I wasn't invited really stings. We have a group chat, and I suppose I was naive in believing that all or most of our contact was happening there. I never considered that some of the group may be getting closer and making other plans, while only few of us drifted apart. I'm not sure why this hurts so much. I never would have suggested taking a trip with them. I don't keep extremely in touch besides the occasional check-in, and yet I can't help but feel devastated. I feel like something has died that I'm grieving, even though it's been a long time since we were that original close-knit group. This probably sounds childish, but we really did do everything as a group for a very long time. Every trip or get-together or birthday. So it completely caught me off guard to see just some of us hanging out together without the others. Am I wrong to feel this way? Now I feel too awkward to even text and check in, even though I wouldn't say anything about the trip. I'd be thinking about what I did wrong to get left out, and if they were going to talk about whatever I say privately amongst themselves. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yours, Lonely. All I'll say about that is that feelings are never wrong, but I'm excited to hear what that letter brings up for you, what memories it evokes, what advice you have for the writer, and anything else. Tell me in the YouTube comments. I will be using those comments as fodder for my next episode. And thank you so much for listening. It felt really good to be back as myself. In the meantime, waiting for the next episode, you can follow me on Instagram. That's AF Hayes. You can find me on YouTube, Alexandra Hayes Robinson, Substack, Hello Hayes, and of course on TikTok, which maybe some other time we'll talk more about my complex relationship with that app. And for now, I love you. I appreciate you. That was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Hell yeah, to enjoying things again. She's enjoying things again. That's a good sign. All right, I'm going to hang up and I'm going to go edit, and I'll see you guys next time.